Hello and welcome to our video on feedback. Together we'll cover how to provide useful feedback to others, what to do when you're the one receiving that feedback, and then some general suggestions on feedback as you move forward. So when it comes to providing feedback, here are 6 points to keep in mind. First, useful feedback is specific and straightforward. It's less helpful to say that a paragraph is unclear than it is to point to a particular sentence or phrase. Similarly, it's better to say that a memo's writing style needs to be more formal than it is to say that its tone is inappropriate. And still better to tell someone to avoid contractions like don't or wouldn't in order to make their writing appropriately formal. At the same time, you want to avoid judgmental language. Obviously, you don't want to tell someone their ideas are stupid or that their writing is bad. At the same time, though, you can replace the word but in statements with the words what if. For example, you can go from I like your first paragraph, but the second one seems out of place to I like your first paragraph. What if you switch the order of the second and third paragraphs? That's less judgmental and more specific. You do want to make sure that the impact of your feedback is clear. So, why are you telling the writer to consider a change? Would it make the document easier to follow, more appropriate to its audience? This has the added benefit of informing the writer about the underlying concern. So, even if they don't take your specific suggestion, they can keep the issue you're helping them to address in mind. You do want to consider the author's confidence levels. You can be more direct in your comments with someone who's more confident in their writing without their taking it as an attack. At the same time, someone who isn't yet confident might get overwhelmed by a slew of corrections and suggestions. This doesn't mean that you should lower your standards. It just means that you need to consider how you can best get them across. And related to this, you should focus on the highest priority changes. What revisions do you think would make the most difference for the writer, and what do they most need to address? Unless they have serious, distracting issues with writing, style, and grammar, or unless they've asked for proofreading help, you might want to focus on the ideas and the larger structures. Finally, remember that the best feedback is useful even beyond a single particular piece of writing. It helps the recipient to grow as a writer, and therefore future feedback can focus on other things. But what about when you're the person receiving that feedback? Here are 6 suggestions. First, listen to make sure that you understand what the other person is trying to say. It's easy to get defensive, but assume constructive rather than critical. That means imagine and assume that the person is trying to help you with this task rather than trying to tear you down. Related to this, if you don't understand a piece of feedback, it's important that you ask for clarification. Providing good feedback is a definite time investment, and that time's wasted if you can't even consider the suggestions because you don't understand them. To make sure you understand the feedback, summarize it for yourself, and then reflect on it. What were the main points, both positive and constructive, that you received on this piece of writing? What might it look like if you incorporated them? And of course, when appropriate, you should incorporate them. That when appropriate is important. Unless you're receiving directions from a superior or perhaps a client, you don't generally have to make all of the suggested changes. Finally, consider if you can take any of the comments forward with you. Should you keep any of it in mind for future writing projects? For example, if someone provides feedback about how to organize your paragraphs, what can you learn from that And how can you apply it the next time you start working on a document? To close, here are 3 tips on feedback that I want to underscore. Regardless of if you're the writer or the reviewer, do your best to take emotions out of the process. Reviews are a tool to help make a piece of writing stronger. Write your feedback from that place and read feedback you receive from the same. Never be afraid to ask follow-up questions, and remember that when it comes to feedback, you should take what's useful and leave the rest. Not all suggestions need to be taken. That's it for this video. Best of luck as you both give and receive feedback in the future.